Hi, I'm Elise, and I'm going to be talking to you all about the development of apneusic breathing in Weddell seal pups, which have been my focus for about a year. My dad is known, even by the neighbors, for his resounding snores. He has sleep apnea, a disorder snoring can often come from. Sleep apnea happens during deep sleep. During a human sleep apnea episode, the throat closes and breathing does not occur. Breathing in after this causes the snore sound and makes for a bad night's sleep. But unlike humans who are negatively affected by apnea, marine diving mammals seem to use apnea as a way to practice not breathing on a dive. Apneas may prime the body for entering the first dive, and further in development, apneusic breathing becomes second nature. Dives for food can be long and deep, so the mammals have a lot of practicing to do. The mammalian dive response is a primarily involuntary response that maximizes oxygen stores during a dive and is initiated by the face being submerged. There are three ways oxygen stores are maximized. The first is apnea, a period where the animal stops breathing, and in deeper divers, lungs collapse. Bradycardia, a lowered heart rate, and peripheral vasoconstriction, where blood vessels constrict to shunt blood to the animal's core. This ultimately redirects blood to essential organs, such as the heart and brain. Marine mammals exhibit the dive reflex conspicuously, as diving is essential to their survival. They rely on diving to feed themselves, and thus show the characteristics of the dive response more prominently than humans, for example. Dive capability of marine mammals increases for immature mammals as they age. Once the mammals mature, a larger body mass indicates higher dive capability. Body mass has some bearing on dive capability in immature mammals as well, but age is the primary indicator of dive capability as development occurs. During this development period, the dive response becomes enhanced by physiological changes. While body mass increases with age, during this period, practice is what's important. Marine mammals spend time on land and in the water practicing apneutic breathing and thus gaining more control over their cardiorespiratory system. More control over respiration increases the efficiency of the dive response, allowing the mammal to be a better diver. This study aims to survey the relationship between longer apneas with water entry and age. Age is an important determinant of dive capability, and we wanted to explore how practice in and out of water during development has a bearing on dive capability in young marine mammals. To do this, we surveyed how much age and water entry factor into their apneutic capability during maturation. We want to investigate the trend of apnea performance through the period of development. Weddell seals are an ideal model species with which to explore this relationship. They exhibit aquatic behaviors early and spend time with mom in and out of water, performing apnea for their first 6 weeks. Accessibility throughout these 6 weeks makes Weddell pups unique to most other marine mammals and data easy to collect before and after apneas begin to occur. Weddell seals also have a pronounced dive response because of the depths they dive to. This means that apnea should be exaggerated in Weddell seals compared to other marine mammals, giving us a better chance at capturing trends in development. Based on accessibility and their strong dive response, Weddell seals model mammal apneutic breathing really well for this study. We hypothesized that the development of apneutic breathing is driven by both age and experience in the water. Fortunately, this study used video footage from the 2019 Weddell seal breeding season in McMurdo Sound, Antarctica, and COVID did not change how we went about our methods. Pups, which were part of a long-term population monitoring study, Project B009 from Montana State University, were identified by flipper tags. From temperature tags on a portion of the pups, Project B009 collected the date at which the pups entered the water. This is only for a few pups. The general flipper tags were inserted within 1 day of birth, so birth date was determined from these tags as well. To give you all a visual of how I went about measuring apnea for this study, I will show a video from the footage taken in Antarctica. So here you're going to see that the animal is going to breathe normally. There's chest movement occurring because of inhalation and exhalation. But now you can see the pup is no longer taking breaths and no movement is really occurring in the chest area. This is considered an apnea. And I want to point out this is the flipper tag that I spoke about that identifies and gives the birth date of each of the pups. Apnea length was measured by time elapsed, like we saw, in seconds between the end and the beginning of regular breathing, the time where no breath occurred. Periods of no breath needed to be greater than 10 seconds long to be considered an apnea. We also collected respiration rate using the same footage by counting the breaths occurring in non-apneustic periods. I also want to mention how careful we were making sure these videos had clear, accurate apneas and respiration rates. Chest movements are more accurate in counting a breath than flaring of the nostrils are. When describing apneustic periods and respiration rate, chest movements were always deferred to. At times, when the pup was active and chest movements could not be separated from general body movement, the nose was used. If neither chest nor nostril movement was clear for the majority of the video, the data was deemed unusable. Only clear movements were analyzed. Okay, this first graph shows how apnea length varies with age. Shown by the positive sloping trend line, as age increases, apnea length does as well. This is consistent with what we expected. As the seal pups age, their respiratory control increases and they can perform longer apneas because of increasing body mass and practice with apnea. There is an amount of variance in the spread of the points, but the zero-length apneas happen more often in younger pups and not at all in pups over 40 days old. Only the longest performed apnea per pup per date was included in this graph. The trend is consistently positive. Pups are holding their breath for longer periods as they age. This graph describes the number of pups showing apneustic behavior in an age group. Like apnea length, more pups are breathing apneustically as they get older. Development seems to cause apneas to increase in length and pups to increase the percentage of their population that perform apnea. In this graph, the pups were grouped by age. For example, week 1 includes pups of the ages 5 to 9 days. Each week group is defined as plus or minus 2 days each week, and n is the number of pups in each week group. Each week, pup apnea was independently evaluated, meaning the same pups are not showing the development of their apneustic behavior in week 1 through week 7 due to sample size, but these groups can still tell us a lot about how physiology changes with age in a population of seals. Already at 2 weeks, more than half of the pups were apneustic, making apneustic behavior normal. Week 4 and on seems to be the time when apnea participation has plateaued. Here, apnea is performed by a vast majority of the pups, with more than 80% of pups in weeks 5 through 7 continuing to perform apnea. The drop in week 5 is from one pup who wasn't observed before 5 weeks and who did not perform an observable apnea on camera. All the apneas reported are conservative measures, as possibly more apneas occurred that weren't captured in the study footage. Week 5 still shows a high percentage of apnea performing pups. From week 4 onward, when almost all pups have the ability to perform apnea, is likely when pups really work on increasing the length of their apnea, further strengthening their dive response. This last graph describes apnea length and age for pups who had a recorded date of water entry. Pups that had entered the water are colored blue and make up most of the longer apnea intervals. Pups that had not entered the water are colored red and likely will not perform apnea. There was only one pup that performed apnea before entering water, further linking above-ground apnea to apnea performed during the dive response. It seems the dive response teaches pups how to perform an apnea, and they continue to practice it after their first exposure to better their dive reflexes. Apnea does seem to be driven by experience and by age, though it's difficult to separate which is the primary driver, or if both have equal effect on apneustic behavior. This study bears the mechanism of mammal diving development. Practice strengthens apnea, a component of the dive response, which then acts to increase diving capabilities, which leads to more foraging success. With a full belly, the mammal is much more likely to survive. Diving success is critical for the first year of life in Weddell seals. 50% of them will not make it to their second year, drowning being the primary cause of those deaths. A pup's ability to hold its breath might just save its life. On a community scale, not many apex predators can inhabit the sub-zero Antarctic, so the niche these mammals fill in their community is specific and irreplaceable. Their population is critical to habitat stability. Studying apnea development is important to the success of this species and of the critical community they inhabit. A study like this requires a lot of work and a lot of hands, so I want to thank Leidos ASC for their support. I'd also like to thank Bill and Linda Frost and the National Science Foundation for their funding. Permits listed are granted federally, and I'm thankful that they can keep these cute animals safe. This idea would not have been explored without the guidance and sharp eye of my faculty advisor and Team B030's PI, Dr. Heather Lewanig. Thank you for inspiring a deeper love of these animals in me and for guiding me through the labyrinth of this study process. I also want to thank the rest of my co-authors for all the info and technical help they've given, as well as Team B030, listed here. Everyone credited has had a huge impact on this study, and I want to express how grateful I am to be working with such a supportive group. Thank you.